it may not feel like football is in the air. I mean, 90-plus degree days, humidity off the charts. It may not feel like it's football weather, but football is on the horizon here in Pittsburgh, and it's time for Steelers training camp, which means we're almost to the preseason, which means then we're almost to yet another regular season here for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And especially now with our new venture here, part of the Sports Now family, with Steelers Now up and running, and this is going to be our first season with Steelers Now fully credentialed and covering a Steelers season. I did some Steelers coverage last year for the channel, but this now will include Steelers Now. So it's as good as time as any, and it's really, really necessary, it feels, because we're getting into that season to preview not only the Steelers, we'll get there, but the entire AFC North and how the Steelers are going to fare into this new division with some moving pieces and some new faces for sure. I'm your host, Mike Asti, and this is another Steelers live chat version of Mic Drop here on Pittsburgh Sports Live. It's made possible thanks to the signs behind me, Beaver County Auto, and of course, SteelersNow.com, up above Market Square here in downtown Pittsburgh. So I'm right in the thick of things for the city, right in our studio downtown, and we're now less than a week away from training camp in Latrobe, far from where I am now, but we're not far from training camp getting underway. The guarantee I can make, although you never really know, is I don't feel anybody's going to show up in a helicopter. It probably will be a minimal entrance type of year for Steelers training camp, but you never know. I mean, we've had players show up as different wrestling characters. Stone Cold Steve Austin made an appearance last year with Vance Williams, so you never really know, and I'm going to be there trying to get it all. Al and I are going to be covering all of training camp, but as we get through training camp and as we get through the preseason and the regular season, it's going to be another interesting regular season nonetheless, and it's different. This is now going to be the first year for the Steelers without Antonio Brown, without Le'Veon Bell, both of them being gone. Obviously, last year they went without Bell. Connor replaced him well, but not fully healthy throughout most of that year. Benny Snell now there. Samuel's there, but still a relatively young running back group. And I've touched on this in past shows. Juju clearly going to be the number one. Great first 2 years, but question marks in terms of he'll deal with double coverage now. Can somebody step up and help him? I said James Washington would be the guy, or at least get the first crack of opportunities in my last one of these, but some go Moncrief. Some are really high on Eli Rogers. Switzer will even get an opportunity now there with a full training camp with Ben. And new pieces on the defense as well. Steven Nelson coming in free agency, needing to add more takeaways to the team. Justin Lane off the draft. It's going to be interesting. Devin Bush, of course. I certainly pegged for potential defensive rookie of the year, if not being the new face of that franchise for years to come. Also covered that throughout the channel. But that's going to bolster the defense and certainly finally replace Ryan Shazier, who they've greatly missed for a year and a half and certainly cost them that playoff game, or helped to cost them that playoff game 2 years ago, a big piece last year. Now, regardless of all those moving pieces and all those changes for the Steelers, and despite losing the best receiver in football, I think the Steelers team actually improved in terms of addition by subtraction there, and a lot of moving pieces and different changes that could actually help this team offensively and defensively. And, of course, needing Boswell to kick better, as he'll be in a competition there, and needing that to be fixed, as it certainly hurt the team last year. But, to be fair, the Ravens are coming in as the defending AFC North champions. So the Ravens are coming in as the defending champs of the division. The Steelers missing the playoffs last year. The Browns missing the playoffs, as well as the Cincinnati Bengals. So it was a one playoff season last year where the Ravens won the division 10-6-0. Steelers 9-6-1 with that one tie early on in the year, the first game of the season, tying the Browns prior to Baker Mania, as annoying as that became. But it eventually caught up with them as the Steelers players, Juju fumbling the ball and forced to take a knee last week of the season, not getting into the postseason with a lot of upset losses to thank for it, and all the drama, of course. The Browns 7-8-1 and the Bengals 6-10. Now, those teams could certainly flip-flop and change. Things don't look the same. The Bengals, I feel like, are the one guarantee to be last in the division. I feel like this show is going to obviously have a lot less Bengal flavor for any other Bengal and AFC North fans that are touching on this and Bengal fans. You're not going to get much love here because I feel like somebody may disagree. You're the one team that I almost can guarantee where you're placed, and that's going to be last in this division. Andy Dalton, A.J. Green, it's a great combination. A.J. Green, very rarely healthy. Question marks, the running game, question marks defensively. It's a new era now of Bengal football. Marvin Lewis finally gone. He needed to go years ago, despite actually providing some positivity for that Bengal era while he was there, 7 playoff appearances. But no playoff wins eventually has to win on you, and he should be gone. He is gone. But they're going to be last, at least for me. And going through the chat here, as I certainly want you guys to get involved. I see many of you are watching. Only a few of you currently chatting. We usually get some activity here at Steelers Live Chats, at least the recent ones I've done. And as I promised, more of these through training camp, more of these through the regular season, in addition to the normal mic drop show and maybe even some hot take programs, little 2 to 3 minute gems that I'll throw out there on the channel as we get moving throughout the season. I even got one actually in the works here that I have planned that will drop soon. Good evening, Steeler Nation. Can't wait till the season begins. Let's go Steelers, Alvin Brown. And I saw you in the last couple chats, so thanks for joining me again. Do you feel like the Steelers are the division favorites right now? They aren't the team that won the division last year, of course, but with all these moving pieces, do you feel still confident? I remember him being a pretty confident guy last week asking me about the team's playoff chances and winning a championship. But do you feel like the Steelers are the favorite to win this division? That's a major question that I would like to discuss here. Do you feel like Ben needs to be better for that team to win? Do you think Ben will be better? Do you think the Steelers will have the best quarterback in the division that they feel like they've had the last several years, even beyond that? But Baker Mayfield, Offensive Rookie of the Year, what will he do his second year? Lamar Jackson needing to do it again. Andy Dalton, former Pro Bowler, we'll see. But will it be Ben again? Will the Steelers have done enough defensively to fix some of their issues the last few years and fix those upset losses that cost them the playoffs a season ago? But again, the Bengals, I feel like, are guaranteed to be last. And then it absolutely gets interesting. Absolutely gets interesting after Cincinnati in terms of Browns, Ravens, Steelers. Now, you may feel like the Steelers are the favorite here, but there's no guarantee. I don't feel anybody's head and shoulders the favorite in this division. There you go, division champs and Super Bowl. So Alvin Brown's being pretty optimistic here early on. Cornerbacks, you meaning cornerbacks being the major reason why that's changed. Steven Nelson's addition, Justin Lane, even maybe another year of Joe Hayden hanging on by a thread. Secondary certainly improving, certainly could be part of why the Steelers turn things around or at least get better defensively, especially in the secondary, needing to flip the field more. But are the Steelers the favorite, I guess is kind of what I want to touch on early on. And the Ravens are the defending champs. So you got to give them their due there. But for my money, they're the defending champs. But that doesn't mean anything. We see divisions in the NFL change hands year after year. A team that was last can win the division the next year. Now, I'm not feeling like that's going to happen this year with the Bengals. But regardless, it was very, very close last year. And that tie ended up screwing the Steelers in some upset losses, say the 16-point blown lead to the Chargers on Sunday Night Football at home, say the game against the Ravens, say the game against the Broncos, even the Raiders last year, who they unfortunately won't play this coming season. There's no game against AB. Those games killed the Steelers last year. And yes, every team faces upsets, but the Steelers faced a lot of them last year, more than even in past years, more than traditional 1 or 2 losses that they shouldn't lose throughout a season. And maybe the drama was part of that. There should be less drama coming into this season without dealing with the national anthem drama, without dealing with Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell and contracts and him quitting on the team and AB and different legal issues with Antonio Brown and kind of acting a fool on social media. All of that won't be there. Now, somebody else, maybe Juju, somebody else maybe brings something up, but there should be at least less drama going into the season, at least less drama to point to. And that's a big deal. Certainly a big deal. So for me, the Steelers actually are the favorite to win this division right now, or at least going into the year, in terms of the improvements they made defensively, in terms of what they've done, especially to help the secondary. One of the key factors they need to have happen is flip the field more often, cause turnovers. Problem last year, and the year before, really, several years before that, they haven't been able to cause turnovers. That's the one thing Steven Nelson may bring to this team, is he'll be able to get his hands on the football and cause turnovers, get interceptions, flip the field right away defensively. That's a big deal. Even Justin Lane could help there. Again, Joe Hayden, even if he's hanging on by a thread, maybe he can help you there and get a pick or two throughout the season. That's a big deal. In addition to that, and part of that they need to be better off special teams-wise. I think that will happen as well. I don't think Boswell will be as bad as he was last year, even though he was pretty bad 2 years ago, the best kicker in football. It's going to be a competition, but regardless of who the kicker, whether it's Boswell or somebody else, I don't think they're going to be as bad as Boswell was last year. He could argue, lost them some games on his own last year. I don't think that's going to happen again. No one would have predicted it last year either. And also, in terms of the special teams, in terms of field position, awful last year, but Switzer, who was there half the season last year, he's never had a year prior to last year in high school and college till the NFL where he didn't at least get one run back for a score. That's going to happen this year, or at least he thinks that's going to happen this coming season. He's going to be there through training camp. He's also going to help the team offensively as a receiver. Certainly could help Ben as a slot receiver. Ben's going to spread the ball around. But he certainly could be there for being there for a full season, and I think it's going to be him as the main returner, or at least he thinks so too. That's going to help the team field position-wise. Flipping the field and field position, two major factors for the Steelers to be the favorite and needing to win the division. Those things need to happen. And also, forget Juju. He's going to be there. Yes, they need him to deal with double coverage well and somebody else to step up. I talked about ad nauseum on the last one of these. Go find it on Pittsburgh Sports Live. Do the little YouTube search there. There's the graphic. But it's also the fact that I think he'll be more efficient. I think Ben will be more efficient, throw less interceptions, maybe actually take better care of the football, even if it means less yards, by not having AB there, not forcing it into him, not feeling comfortable that he'll be there and catch anything, and spread it around to more receivers. James Conner's health, obviously, a big deal as well, and replacing the tight end production from Jesse James. So all of those things happen, and yes, there's a lot of question marks, and a lot of things need to happen, but going into the year, for my money, the Steelers are the favorites. Beyond that, though, the Ravens are right there with them, although the major question mark for Baltimore, and the Browns too, but the major question mark for Baltimore is Lamar Jackson. Another reason why I think the Steelers are the favorite, I don't have any confidence in Lamar Jackson. I don't believe Lamar Jackson can do it again. Okay, he led them to the playoffs last year. I get it, but I don't believe he can do it again. I don't believe it's going to happen again. And I went back and forth with a Ravens fan, little Ravens blogger that I helped him out to appear in his channel about this. Many Ravens fans are high on the guy. I know he led you to a playoff berth last year, which makes sense. You'd be high on that. You'd like that. And that is clearly why Joe Flacco had to go. It is Lamar Jackson's team now, or at least it had to be the end of the Joe Flacco era. But in all honesty, I wouldn't actually feel comfortable with it being Lamar Jackson era myself. Lamar Jackson gives you that RG3 feel. Maybe not as much athleticism as RG3, but gives you that feel where there's some athleticism there. Yes, he has more of an arm. Yes, he maybe can try to look to throw more often than RG3 was, who was looking to run right away early in his career and at Baylor. But Lamar Jackson can't throw the check down. Lamar Jackson can't complete easy completions, short passes. Lamar Jackson can't get that done. He can throw the cannon. He can throw the long route. He'll score points. Ravens will get a few down the field. Granted, their offense is mostly going to be, run literally on the ground through the running game. But if he can't do the easy stuff, and there's already concerns of maybe injury, and if he can really get it done for a full season, which we've not seen, that gives me a major pause. That gives me major concern. The easy throws, yes, you can maybe change those and feel like it's easier to teach, but there's no reason why those are being messed up right now. And another year of dealing with other defenses are going to pose more of a problem to key on Lamar Jackson, just like they will with Baker Mayfield as well. So I just have no confidence in Lamar Jackson doing this again, of leading this team for the next 5 to 10 years, of being the face of that franchise, of doing it again. And even though they have a great running game, and even though Mark Ingram being there and that running game being sound, maybe the best running game in the division, you can't just rely on the run game. They're almost trying to go old school football. It's almost like the Ravens are trying to turn it back to Steelers football of years ago and how they used to do it, and not of today's NFL, where it is a passing game, where you do need elite wide receivers, where you do want to move the football through the chains, whether it be the running back also working as a wide receiver, whether it be the tight ends who are pass-catching tight ends, whether it be having a two tight end set or having multiple receivers out there that you spread it out to, having two maybe that go deep. It's a passing era for sure. 5,000 plus yards for several quarterbacks each year. And Lamar Jackson's not going to be there. He's not one of those guys. Lamar Jackson feels to me, to make this easy, much more of an RG3 than a Russell Wilson, for example. Russell Wilson, a quarterback that led his team to 2 Super Bowls, won one. I think has been very, very underrated with 3,000 passing yards every single season of his career, no matter who's there. And he doesn't have elite receivers. Doug Baldwin gone. He's a myriad of production through that position. And same thing with Marshawn Lynch being gone as a running back. So no longer having elite players, but still throwing up the yards, still getting it done. And no matter who's there with them. And that I don't see from Lamar Jackson. At least not yet. Maybe it'll happen in the future, but I don't see it yet. So I think that's going to really, really hold that team back. And then goes to the Browns with Baker Mayfield, who I think will have a better year than Lamar in terms of just numbers and how they perform. I think there's maturity there with Baker, which is crazy to say. I get it. But I think there's actually maturity with Baker Mayfield. Let me throw up some stats here. This is Ben's numbers. Here's Ben. Last year, Ben over 5,000 yards passing, 675 pass attempts. That's pretty high, the highest in his career, the most passing yards in his career as well. But that's the first year, or second year that he was over 600 passing yards. 67 per completion. That's pretty damn solid with all those yards. But 16 interceptions, led the league in picks. Only one season of his career actually did he have more interceptions, and only 2 others did he have that many or more. So one of the year he tied it, had 16, and then another year way back in 2006 had 23, which is early on in his career, obviously, even though they won a Super Bowl around that time. But he, 16 last year, 14 the year before, leading the league in picks despite also leading the league in yards. Unacceptable stuff. Cannot go on. Ben needs to be more efficient, but I do believe with all that talent around him, still talent around Ben in comparison to the others in the division, and the fact that he might actually be more efficient without AB and spreading it around to a lot of other guys and maybe more youth if they can stay healthy, Ben should still actually be the best quarterback in the division, at least for one more year. But his competition, see if you guys agree, and it's not Lamar Jackson, even though the Ravens won the division last year, and some actually Raven fans are high on him and believe in him, who led his team to the playoffs last year. This guy didn't, but it's Baker Mayfield for sure. In terms of, and here's Baker's stats, 14 games last year, 13 as a starter, and remember the Steelers not being the division champion last year really went back to tying the Browns before Baker Mayfield back in week 1, as crazy as that was. Baker last year, 3,725 passing yards, 3,725, 27 TDs, 14 picks, so actually less interceptions than Ben, despite obviously less games played, but around the same in terms of overall play. Almost half as many pass attempts, 486. 310 incompletions, the completion percentage 63.8%. This is a great rookie year. I mean, it's not even fair to compare him to a Hall of Famer. Ben's a Hall of Famer, still getting it done, despite maybe making more mistakes than you'd like. Whereas Baker Mayfield, that's his rookie year. Didn't even start until a few games into the season, and clearly turned that bus around, taking a team that was 0-16 the year before to one win away from being 500, and many predicting not only a playoff team, a wild card team, but maybe a division favorite right there with the Steelers and even beyond off the offseason they had. And that was with a team without an elite receiver. There was no elite receiver there with Baker Mayfield. Obviously this year they're going to have one in terms of, I don't know if I actually got, oh, there it is. In terms of Odell Beckham Jr. Odell Beckham Jr., 1,000-plus receiving yards in 4 out of those 5 seasons with the Giants, but only 1 playoff appearance with New York. Tons of long touchdown catches, including several 80-plus yarders. That prolific one on Sunday Night Football against the Cowboys years ago. The one-handed catch, one of the best catches I've ever seen, even though they did lose that game. 12, 13, 10, 3, and 6, so it dipped the last few years, but also because of injuries, and Eli has been completely sporadic, and the Giants have been a complete mess with as much drama has been around Cleveland and the Steelers. The Giants have been right there with them, if not even more dramatic, the last few years. But yet, of course, Odell Beckham Jr. playing at a Pro Bowl level, maybe the best receiver in football, at least athletically, right there with Antonio Brown the last few years. However, only 1 playoff appearance for the Giants. So that's going to help Baker, obviously. Give him somebody to rely on, someone to catch a ball that maybe isn't catchable. Somebody like Ben to force it into if you have to. That may have led to Ben more interceptions, but it also moved the chains a lot more often and caused touchdowns for the Steelers as well. Same thing could happen with Baker. Maybe you'll see more yards, more interceptions with Baker. Maybe a Ben-like year last year, but maybe that team will be more explosive. Absolutely could be the case. Absolutely could be the case for Baker Mayfield and Odell Beckham Jr. for the Browns. So I don't think a wild card berth is crazy. I don't think being second to the Steelers in the division is crazy. Might even be where I put them. I think that's very, very reasonable. But, and this is a big but, wouldn't be shocked if it's less. I wouldn't be shocked if they miss the playoffs and do a similar record as last year. Odell Beckham Jr. hasn't immediately meant much in terms of winning to the Giants. So why would it change with the Browns, even though he has a younger quarterback? But it's also a second year for these defenses to learn about Baker and a key in on him. Defenses have changed, as I mentioned. David Bush now with the Steelers. Steven Nelson, Justin Lane. A lot of differences for the Steelers defensively that will help them against a quarterback like Baker Mayfield, even as well against Lamar. They're different guys, though. And it feels like Baker's maturing. It doesn't feel like he'll be the Johnny Manziel problem, but it's still a second year. There still could be a sophomore slump, and it's still just insane hype on the Browns, who have nobody on that team who's done it before, nobody who's a veteran who can teach anybody. Chubb being there, I mean, they have a lot of problem children that are also going to be there. The running game maybe will be the best in the division right there with the Ravens. But a lot of question marks, and defensively they're going to be better as well. But we'll see. I'm just not buying the hype yet, but a wild card berth wouldn't be shocking. Maybe a runner-up for the division wouldn't be shocking. Maybe if things go right, they can win the division. Wouldn't shock me necessarily, but let's calm down on the hype. Ravens and Browns kind of fighting off there for 2 and 3, and then the Bengals last. Kind of where I see it here. I do see some chatters here. Teams will adapt to Jackson. Yeah, I'm with you there again on Lamar Jackson. I feel like, again, maybe easier than Baker, and maybe I'll bring this up. Who do you guys think will have a better sophomore season? We did who would be the best quarterback in the division. I still say Ben. Some of you guys were still high on him, at least for one more year, with the question marks of him maybe being more efficient and the question marks around Baker and Lamar for a second year, and Andy Dalton just having that chaos that is the Bengals. But in terms of just Lamar and Baker, which one of them will have a better year? That could be a big deal. That could decide who's second and third in the division or winning the division. I mean, that could bump the Steelers down in terms of what I'm predicting here. And the Steelers have really no reason to be the favorite for everybody, even though some are predicting them to be so, because they missed the playoffs last year. So that's being fair. But out of those two, I would go Baker. I know Odell Beckham Jr. being the weapon is certainly a major help, at least to make those numbers better, even if it doesn't turn into more winning. And again, I just don't believe in Lamar. I just don't. Call me a Lamar Jackson hater if you want. I just don't believe in Lamar Jackson. Again, it gives me flashes to RG3, maybe not as much as RG3 in terms of that drama and not even knowing how to slide. But I feel like Lamar won't last full seasons. I feel like teams will key on him and will know him, and defenses will just collapse on him. And he doesn't know how to throw the check down. The man can't throw the easy, short first down pass. You're not always going to be throwing it deep with a cannon. It's great, but you got to be able to check it down and throw the short route, and he can't do it. He can't complete there, as odd as that sounds. So for my money, and these are, here we go with Lamar Jackson's numbers last year, starting 7 games, 16 games played, but only starting 7 of them in terms of games that he gets counted for. Didn't play in all of them, obviously. 7 games started. Was the starting quarterback as they went into the playoffs. 58.2 percentage, so a much worse year than Baker Mayfield, obviously, even though he also played less. Baker over 60% completion. Lamar in that Cam Newton standard that's below 60, unlike, you want to be over 60 for sure. 1,200 passing yards, 6 TDs, 3 interceptions, so that's kind of efficient there. I mean, that TD-interception ratio, the yardage based on the games he played, that's not bad by any means. But again, is a shorter sample size, for sure. There's just not the playmaker that the Browns have to help him out individually, help bail him out. And I think defenses keying in on Lamar will be worse than defenses keying in on Baker. It'll cause more of a problem. So I'm going Baker over Lamar there in terms of which one of those two will have a better sophomore season. And Ben is still the best quarterback in the division, at least for one more year. And all of this a major factor throughout the division. I agree, need to keep the interceptions below 10. I saw a tweet, and I should have put a screen grab on this for one of these images. I didn't do it. Sorry, Neil. Neil Coulon, USA Today, Steelers Wire, friend and colleague of mine. I've done a lot of work with him in the past, and hope maybe to get him on some shows here as he moves towards the Steelers season as a guest at the very minimum. Maybe collaborate a little bit with Steelers Now and his enterprise. But he threw out the question of, would it be Bud Dupree more than 6 sacks? The Steelers win 10 or more games, something to this effect. It also included Ben with less than 10 interceptions. I think the Steelers could maybe push in terms of 10 wins. It's kind of where I see them probably what would win this division. Boswell, I think better than 88% completion in terms of success rate as a kicker was one of those. And that's not even near his career best, as he was one of the most efficient kickers ever years ago. And last year was just horrendous. So I think that's going to be better. We'll see where it goes. Might be easy to pick that if he doesn't have a horrible season again. Bud Dupree, it's going to be a big deal. I did this on past shows as well, so go through the channel to browse. Going to be a big deal needing to help T.J. Watt and needing to get much more of a pass rush for the Steelers defense to really improve, in addition to Devin Bush in the secondary. It outside linebackers, and it can't just all be T.J. Watt in terms of the pass rush. It has to be more with Bud Dupree and company. That could certainly help the team. I don't know if I believe in him to make it happen, though. And then the interceptions below 10, I know you bring that up there in terms of on the chat. And as I said, Ben's going to be more efficient. I believe that fully. Ben will be more efficient with the football. He'll throw less interceptions. 16 led the league last year despite all the yards. Unacceptable stuff has to be lower. But I don't know if I'm going to go all the way to below 10. I mean, 14 the year before. I think 9 the year before that. Let me throw Ben's up here again. Here's Ben. So so we're looking at 16 last year, 14 the year before, 13 the year before that, 16 the year before that. That's the other year with 16 that I mentioned earlier. And then 9 before that, 14, 8, 14. I mean, that's a lot of picks that he's throwing. This is getting into more of a Brett Favre style with more and more yards and more interceptions, less efficient football. So you got to have him be more efficient, obviously. But, and this is a major but here, I just don't see going all the way to below 10. That's a big. I mean, if he is more efficient, gets below 10, this team wins the division a year after AB, changing the tune in terms of drama and leadership. He still has the yards up there. The TDs are still there. That's an MVP caliber year. I mean, that's the one thing he hasn't done in his Hall of Fame career, and that's an MVP caliber year, if that's really what happens. So I don't see that. I could see 12. 13 picks again, and it doesn't seem like much less than 16, obviously, but that's even a bigger deal. That might swing a game or two. That could change a game or two because he had some of those 3 or 4 pick games, game against the Raiders in particular. That could swing that one game right there. So maybe 3 or 4 picks less, maybe around 12 if I had to predict. That'd be better. It'd be best thing he's done in 3 years in terms of low end on interceptions. So that's possible. I don't think 9, though. I don't think below 10. I don't think 8. I mean, that's been years since he's done that. They're throwing too many passes. There's going to be too many pass attempts to make that happen, even if he's at 67% again in terms of completion, which is great. But I can't see going that low. I don't think he needs to be that low, but he certainly needs to bring those picks down here. Rolling through the division in terms of what facets are going to be the best for each team in terms of who's going to be the best quarterback, better than Lamar and Baker. The other end of things, though, is which team's going to have the best defense. And, it wouldn't be crazy to say Steelers. Obviously, a lot has changed in the Steelers' defense, and I do think it'll be mightily improved. I don't want to go Steelers, though, here. I'm not going to go chalk with the Steelers. They're going to have an improved defense for sure. And I do believe that defense will absolutely be improved. We'll flip the field more often, and Devin Bush will be a major deal and a big help replacing Shazier finally as an inside backer. But this defense has been really the weakness of the team for 3, 4, 5 years. Hurt them 2 years ago in the playoffs against the Jags, who marched up and down the field with Blake Bortles, for crying out loud. I can't see the Steelers' defense being the best in the division, and maybe which will equalize this thing, because I think the Steelers are going to be much better offensively, going to have more of a versatile attack, going to have the better quarterback, better running game, better receivers than the Ravens, maybe even than the Browns. But the Browns and Ravens defenses could be better. I mean, the Steelers could be third in the division on defense, even with the improvements. It could be a close race there. The Browns secondary will probably be better than the Steelers. The Ravens secondary, the Ravens defense could be a top 10 defense, could be a top 15 defense at least. Secondary maybe being top 10, overall defense top 15. It's very, very possible. Earl Thomas now there, so that's a big coup for them and better than losing Terrell Suggs. Yeah, he's in Arizona now, but he kind of was dipping anyway. Earl Thomas, if he's healthy, which is a big deal, but if he's healthy, that's a major change. That's a big improvement for the Ravens defensively. And Devin Bush is a rookie. He's going to get it done, I believe. But Earl Thomas is a proven vet that for 1 year, and again, this is just for 1 year, for next year, I got to go him. And the Ravens probably going to have the best defense. I think they're going to have, be well behind the Browns in offense, well behind the Steelers in offense, even with their running game being the best in the division. But they're going to have the best defense. I think the Browns might even be second, then the Steelers, and again, the Bengals way down at the bottom. Not much Bengals love here on the program. Which is, again, how this is going to get equalized. I mean, that could give the Ravens the division again. It certainly helped them last year, helps them every single season. If the Browns happen to flip it and they have the best defense or at least have the most takeaways, best secondary maybe, that could help things, could even give them the division. I don't think anyone's running away with things. I think it'll be relatively close between the Browns, Ravens, and Steelers, and whoever beats each other up there, and they all will beat each other up. No one will be sweeping those series. Steelers will lose a game or two, probably lose one to both. Maybe win the division. So it's going to be a much tighter race than last year even, and even the Steelers didn't make the playoffs last year. But they can ill afford those upsets. They can ill afford to lose those games and tie like a Brownless Baker team. I mean, or Bakerless Browns team. That can happen. They can't lose a game that Lamar doesn't play well in. If Lamar doesn't play well, you got to beat the Ravens. But those things could happen. Wouldn't surprise me. That's kind of what the Steelers do last few years as well. So I think the Steelers aren't going to have the best defense in the division, but it might be good enough and be mightily improved to help them out. And fighting it out between the Browns and Ravens in terms of who actually does have the best division or the best defense in the division so far. As I go through it here, and again, I see a decent amount of you watching the show, a decent amount of you here still with me during this broadcast, as we're going to kick it along a little bit longer. Not going to go too crazy here as I got some things to take care of, and not tons activity in the chat right now this week in comparison to, say, last week's and the last several. A lot of activity in the chat, which is optimistic, and we want that, guys. I'm going to do my regular mic drop show, okay? I'm going to give you that uploaded content. I'm going to do some hot take programs. I'm going to do a lot more with this channel as we go towards a season of Steelers coverage, especially for the Steelers, with Steelers Now in full flex and the credential and all. Like's been done with Pittsburgh Hockey Now, and like's been done with Pittsburgh Sports Now. And you're going to have more player interviews and Tomlin again and all of that, and maybe even get more of it from the other ventures as well. But these Steelers live chats, I'm feeling like they're going to happen weekly. I'm going to try to pick a night a week, regardless of when they play, maybe at least focus on the opponent, focus on what's going on. Maybe not as much drama, but maybe we can actually talk some football here. Unlike last season's programs, even though they did well because of all the Antonio Brown drama, they did well here views-wise. But I'd like to talk football, whether I'm doing this or appearing on other shows and whatever I'm doing with the NFL in my career. I'd like to talk some football. We'll see how much that can happen. Knowing the Steelers, it'll be sparse, or at least more than the last couple years, I'm going to try to guarantee. But that's all about the Steelers live chats here. I want to get this engagement rolling, so you guys that are watching, love to actually have you chat. There's many of you here. We got some of you, but more can join in. I won't bite. At least I won't bite yet. I'll say that. My name is James, by the way. Okay, no problem, man. Yeah, I couldn't fully read that username there, but I appreciate the comment. I appreciate the activity there. But your name is James. So James, thanks for the conversation. I think the Browns defense could be first, then us, because look at what the Ravens lost: Suggs, C.J. Mosley, Weddle, etc. In terms of us, he's referring to the Steelers. I'm not a Steelers fan. We're covering the team, so this is trying to be without a bias here. Even though some may say you're picking the Steelers to win the division, it's going to be a bias. That's just honestly what I think. I didn't think they'd win last year, and they didn't. So I'm being fair about this thing here. There's no guarantees. I wouldn't be shocked if they don't. That's also fair, his analysis there, despite being a fan. The Browns, they did some work defensively. Everyone's focusing on Odell Beckham Jr., but that Browns secondary, Jarvis Landry and company, I mean, that team is going to be good defensively, and that might – if the Browns – I'll say this. If the Browns get in the playoffs, if the Browns win the division, surprisingly, or even if the Browns go further in the playoffs, as many are predicting. I don't think so, but many are hyping them up there after the offseason of love that they had and the great offseason, the best offseason they've had really in Browns history, certainly since coming back to the NFL this century. But it's going to be about their defense. For them to actually be a good team, not just an explosive team that's entertaining and kind of fun to watch, what they will be finally, but it's going to be about the defense. It's going to be about Jarvis Landry. It's going to be about that defense, and if that defense can get it done, if that defense can be the best in the division, then that should be a playoff team for the Browns. In terms of the Ravens, though, yeah, you bring up they lost Suggs and C.J. Mosley and Weddle, and Weddle. I did a whole thing on this for the website, an article and a show, and I thought the Steelers should have went after Weddle. Despite the rivalry, it shouldn't have mattered. They should have. I don't know if I actually posted this because I think this is what happened. I don't think you can find this on the channel. I think I recorded this, and then this screwed me. He went to the Rams right after I finished recording and was going to put it up the next day, and they were too quick on me, so I didn't. I was too busy that week, and I don't think that ever went up. But I did do a show, so it's there for me to remember back on. And the Steelers fans, maybe it's there, I don't remember fully. The Steelers fans shouldn't have cared. I would have loved to have had him. It didn't matter what he said in the past in his comments that he was a Ravens player and hated on the Steelers. Just all in good fun for the rivalry. But he's not there. The Steelers didn't have a chance at him. He's gone. That will hurt them for sure. That'll hurt them. But I don't think Suggs losing Suggs hurts them. They have Earl Thomas there. You'd rather have Earl Thomas, even at this age, and the fact that he just had an injury and missing most of that season with the Seahawks, than have Terrell Suggs right now. Terrell Suggs is done. Terrell Suggs is pretty much on the decline. He's pretty much done. He's going to Arizona to die. That's where a lot of people go to die, whether it be in general or in the National Football League over the years. It's over for him. I really don't feel like he's any longer going to be a Pro Bowl player. And maybe he'll have something to prove and prove me wrong down there. But Earl Thomas also has something to prove with his contract dispute and flipping off the Seahawks as he's being carted off the field last year. That whole mess. He has something to prove now that the Seahawks were wrong in not offering him tons of money, not trying to bring him back, and not prioritizing him. The Ravens do it. They bring him in with a big deal, and I think he'll get it done. I think he's motivated. He's better. You'd rather have him, and Suggs is just no longer elite and no longer that good. So I don't think losing Suggs is that big of a deal, and why the Steelers could maybe get up there in terms of the second-best team in the division, in terms of defensively, or be right there with the Browns because maybe the Ravens are the best team defensively in the division. Wouldn't shock me at all. In fact, I actually think the Ravens are going to be the best team defensively in the division because Earl Thomas being motivated and because of what else they have overall there. I believe this is Busman6124. Now we're getting some chat activity. I like this. Always picks up as we move. We should handle a little earlier in the show, so eventually I don't have to do as long of these. But anyway, Browns first, Steelers second, and Ravens third. I don't know what team he's a fan of necessarily. And we do have some other fan bases, especially the divisional fan bases that have touched in and been part of these Steelers chats, and you're all welcome. We like that. Maybe some of you, if you actually – I'll pose this. And this is what I thought of. Obviously we're going to have credentialed guests who are covering those teams, trying to, retool the studio to make that happen. Try to work in some guests here even in the studio. Trying to do back what I did with the trip for any of you who followed me for a while in terms of a lot more guests than we had last season. I definitely want to make that happen. Technology speaking is really the only thing holding it back. So we're going to try to make that happen for this season. But in addition to that, and I did this with a Ravens blogger, so maybe I'll welcome on some fans, some bloggers, fans of the interdivisional, the Ravens, the Browns, the Bengals, maybe even a Patriots, some rivals. Maybe we'll do some, back and forth debate through video here on the channel. Maybe we'll do that throughout the season. Maybe I'll try to make that happen for you. So anybody here on the chat that's getting really active on the chat that has a blog or even is just a fan that clearly has a YouTube account because you're part of the chat and you're hopefully subscribing. There it is, subscribing to us on Pittsburgh Sports Live, which is easy to do. You just click on that little button there underneath the show. Maybe you'll be who I'll pick to debate with as the fan of the opposing team. So any Ravens, Bengals, even Patriots, Browns fan, Chargers, Raiders, Broncos, whoever, Jets now with Bell out there. if you got a blog, or even if not, you got a YouTube account here and you want to go back and forth with me, maybe I'll consider you. Maybe it'll depend on how often you're chatting, what you're doing in the chat. Obviously, we're going to need to keep this, relatively PC. We got some restrictions among us, and we're going to need to try to keep this relatively intelligent, because that can run amok, at least on social media. So we'll see if I can think you guys can do this with me. But if you can, and if one maybe is successful, we'll see about doing that more throughout the season. So I'm not opposed to it, but it obviously can't get asinine. And obviously, there's always a chance things can get asinine when it comes to me, dealing with the people. So we'll see. These chats have been okay, though. Ben's ability to option past AB will be a key. Yeah, again, that will be a key. That's kind of what I said in the opening of the show. That's why I think Ben will still be the best quarterback in this division in terms of his production for next year. That's why I have a lot of confidence in him, despite all the turnovers and the mistakes that were made last year. And again, he deserves the criticism. It's unacceptable. You can't lead the league in interceptions and expect to be a championship team. However, he threw his most yards of a single season last year. That is a big deal in a way. He still completed 67% of his passes, so it wasn't incredibly non-efficient. That's good for sure. It's better than average. And I think he will actually be more efficient and make less mistakes with AB being gone. Plus, Rodgers, Switzer, James Washington, who I think will step up. He's my number 2 pick. Moncrief, who they brought in, and maybe if he's finally healthy. Juju, dealing with the double coverage, but if he can handle it, and if somebody like James Washington could step up to take away some of it from him. Zach Gentry, a lot can need to happen to replace Jesse James, but Vance McDonald, James Conner, Benny Snell, Samuels even. There's no longer that power back, but there's a lot of talent still there. It's a younger team, still weapons. And I do think Ben, which is what he's done well recently, similar to Brett Favre, they're getting similar really career-wise when you look at overall stats. Maybe he's not going to set the TD and interception records, but how they play is getting similar here, at least the last few years. It's comparable. Obviously, a lot of TDs, a lot of picks, a lot of yards, but also spread the rock around for Brett Favre through his illustrious career. Ben, especially recently, spreading the ball around, and I think he'll do more of that this year, like the chatter said, like James said, Busman actually said that one, like Busman. I think he will spread the ball around more with all those options and get all those guys involved. I think he will do more of that. Maybe not having Juju have a 1,500-yard season. Maybe it'll be more spread around, which is good. That's the ticket. And be more efficient. Maybe a little bit less of a Brett Favre year, but Favre always spread it around even when he was making the mistakes. So that's part of it. And I think that will happen. So that's kind of going off there, and I think that maybe if all that happens, though, the Steelers are favored and are going to be a playoff team if not win the division. And I think 10 wins is enough to win the division. 11 beyond that, I think you might have a 1 or 2 game cushion. I think you're looking at 10 wins for the Steelers, maybe 9 for the Ravens, 8 for the Ravens, Browns 8 and 9 as well, kind of in that neighborhood, and the Bengals 3-4 wins probably. Let's see here. Will give us more pass rush this year. Hoping, I don't know who he's mentioning there. Ola will give us, can't remember the last name, will give more of a pass rush this year. Well, I'll do this for James. The Steelers need more of a pass rush. I don't know who he's mentioning, but they need more of a pass rush overall. It can't just be T.J. Watt in terms of the sacks, in terms of the pass rush, and it's not even just about the sack number, which again was mostly T.J. It's about the overall pass rush and getting to the young quarterbacks especially. Lamar and Baker, you got a young quarterback group to deal with in this division, at least the ones who are going to be on contending teams. Don't forget Andy Dalton really in the Bengals. Steelers, Browns, and Ravens. Those are 3 teams going to be fighting it out for the division title and really maybe for the playoffs. Maybe there should be 2 playoff spots in this division this year. I think that will happen. But if not, it's going to be about who's one of these quarterbacks is better, if Ben can hang on or if the 2 young guys can outseed him. And it might be about mistakes. And those 2 young guys, that Ben can be more efficient, which is big, but those 2 young guys in that sophomore slump, will that happen or not? Will it be just about the defenses keying in on them and learning more about them with a year full of tape in the NFL, but also to the fact that there being more of a pass rush? And that's part of it. The Steelers need more of a pass rush to deal with the Baker Mayfields, especially now with a weapon like Odell, and to even deal with Lamar Jackson. Lamar can't throw the check down, so pass rush him, rock him, make him try to throw it deep, probably be incomplete out there, give him no time to throw the check down since he's already struggling doing it, and then deal with him further and that'll probably cause sacks and give him fits. But even if it's not translating into sacks, having more of a pass rush will really get in the psyche and really help you against young quarterbacks. And Baker and Lamar are still young quarterbacks, despite playing well. And last year, I mean, Lamar leading his team to the playoffs, Baker Offensive Rookie of the Year. I get it, but it's going to a sophomore season. Despite the changes and moving pieces on their offenses, more of a pass rush for the Steelers can really help you against those young quarterbacks and really change things. Moving down here, and again, I'm still welcoming chatters here. Still can welcome chatters for a little bit longer as I go through this. I do think, lastly, in terms of which coach is on the hot seat, again, we're going to leave the Bengals out of this. This is 1 year in, although coaches do get fired 1 year in, but it's a new era that's not going to happen. They kept Marvin Lewis for, goddamn, over a decade without winning a playoff game. And there shouldn't be expectations there right now, at least reasonably speaking. So it boils down to Harbaugh just got a new deal. He just signed a new deal, just re-up for a little bit longer. Him and Tomlin are very, very similar. Kind of what it really boils down to, because the Browns have a new coach as well. Again, they just fired Hugh Jackson. I can't see firing another guy off of 1 year as long as it doesn't go in 16 again, and they're somewhat in contention. I think they're going to keep the norm now and kind of right the ship with this group, and he'll be part of that. So then it boils down to Mike Tomlin and John Harbaugh. And Harbaugh and Tomlin are very, very similar in terms of resumes. They both won a Super Bowl, but both of them having won that championship a while ago. They both have had consistent playoff appearances and usually fighting it out and usually have defensively led teams despite solid offenses as well. Great coaches that have been there over a decade. Similar run franchises, similar region of the country really. Similar a lot of things. They've shown a lot more confidence in Harbaugh based on his recent deal. He did win the division last year, thanks to the Steelers kind of giving it to him, but it did happen. He had a playoff appearance last year, so that was, a plus for him. But the overall body of work's been similar. Tomlin going to one more Super Bowl than Harbaugh, even though they both won one. And then the AFC Championship game appearances and losses to the Patriots in the playoffs, etc. Relatively similar body of work, really, over the last 10 years. And you could argue Harbaugh gets more respect than even Tomlin does. I mean, Tomlin, I saw in one national outlet ranking him as the 11th best coach in football right now. And I get it. Right now is not your full career. It's right now. So Sean McVay is going to be there. Doug Peterson's going to be there. And obviously Belichick, the greatest coach of all time, for me, and I don't think that's even debatable, is going to be there, just winning a Super Bowl again. But Mike Tomlin, one missed playoff appearance with as close as they got and how much drama they dealt with, and AB quitting on the team last week of the season, and all he dealt with the last couple years even, 11 or outside the top 10, that's ridiculous. Come on, that's asinine right there. This is a guy who's been to 2 Super Bowls, won one, and yes, that was a while ago, but it's still an above 600 win percentage. Look at all those division titles, all those playoff appearances, and yes, there's talent there, and you would like to see more playoff success, and yes, he's certainly underachieved in some ways, and yes, he's not without criticism or fault. He can't deal with clock management at all. Will that change? I probably doubt it, but they gave somebody a job just to fix it. So I hear you. There are things to criticize Tomlin needs to be better at for them maybe to win a title. And he let the locker room get out of control. I get it. Part of that was on him for what happened with AB, even though it's not all on him. But part of it was. You can blame him for part of it. But with the body of work he put forth and the fact that his resume is only second to none to Bill Belichick over the last decade, and they're still 2 years away from 13 wins in the regular season, even though last year they missed, 11 seems a bit asinine and a bit ridiculous. So, but he is more on the hot seat, I'll say that, at least from what the teams have shown confidence. He's more on the hot seat than John Harbaugh. Depending on how the year goes, obviously things can change because the other two are not going to fire a one-year head coach based on how they're going into kind of a new era of the Browns and Bengals football. But I will also say that, as I've said on past shows and as many media members like me have said, and I keep banging the drum on this, no matter what you think of Mike Tomlin, like Bill Cowher, like Chuck Noll before him, and they weren't perfect by any means. Cowher had all those AFC Championship game losses. Chuck Noll had a decade in the 80s of really mediocrity after the dynasty in the 70s. Doesn't matter. They weren't fired. The Rooney family is not going to fire a head coach. They're not going to fire Tomlin that's won them a championship that has had all those playoff appearances, that won those division titles, that's 2 years removed from 13 wins, especially if they get in the playoffs this year, if they win the division, if they flirt with contention, if they even get near it, it would have to be a 2 or 3 win season for them to be firing Tomlin, and probably have to happen back-to-back years, if not several in a row. I could see in terms of the hot seat, and I do believe he's more on the hot seat than Harbaugh or anybody in the division, just almost out of default because of the Harbaugh contract and what's going on with one-year head coaches for the other two. But I could see them not picking up his new deal. I could see Tomlin not getting another contract after this one is up. I could see them kind of parting ways mutually. I even could see maybe trading like John Gruden back in the early 2000s. The Raiders trading him to the Buccaneers and him winning a championship for the Bucs. I mean, now he's back with Oakland again, but I could see that even. I could see that as more of a possibility than firing the guy. He just won't be fired. The Rooney family likes continuity. They don't want to be firing a coach every other year like the Browns were doing or like the Cardinals were doing or other franchises that just give the impression of chaos. While the Bengals didn't win a playoff game, at least they didn't do that. They didn't have that insanity and inconsistency. So you got to have somebody at the top, and you got to have the culture fixed. He needs to make improvements, but he's not getting fired by any means, despite being more on the hot seat than anybody else in the division. I could see stepping down. I could see parting ways mutually. I could see a trade. I could see him not having his contract picked up, all ahead of Tomlin being fired. Just because they don't do it. The Rooney family doesn't do it. They just don't fire head coaches. So it's just not going to happen. Just won't. Steeler Y36 Nation. Y360 Nation, actually. So Steelers 360 Nation. There you go. Steelers, the NFL these days is 360 all year long, especially the Steelers, with or without the drama. I can't wait until football season starts. And yeah, this is fine with the chat. You can talk. You can just tell me you're waiting for football season. That's great. Yeah, again, I'm excited too. Good point. I'm assuming good point on the Tomlin stuff in terms of his historical comparison, in terms of he's going to be a Hall of Famer, in terms of the last 10 years and being second to none to Belichick and not getting enough respect, and how they're not going to fire head coaches, the Steelers franchise. Good point there. I'm with you, boss man. Thank you. I will brush my own shoulders off. Hopefully they'll win a challenge this year. Yeah, that is what Tomlin's problem is. He can't win a challenge. But they have actually retooled the staff in terms of adding an assistant that can help you win challenges. There is now assistants whose job is to worry about the challenges. And that's not really even going to still be Tomlin's responsibility. So I don't know if that's to deflect the blame off of him if they don't win them. I don't know what's going on there. Maybe he doesn't want that flack and the Steelers PR, because they do care about those things. I get texts from a friend with the PR staff of, we worrying about this, or you're caring too much about this, or telling me whether I'm criticizing him too hard. They do care what people and fans and media think, whether they want to admit it or not. And they probably don't love the whole Tomlin can't win a challenge in years, and the whole Tomlin don't know how to use the challenge flag, and the whole Tomlin can't do clock management thing. But that's been going on. One of the rare things that fans and media agree on the last few years. So maybe giving that to somebody else, their responsibility will change things, but I could see it. But we'll see. Maybe I guess the odds are him winning one. I don't know. I guess the odds are him winning one, but we'll see. I mean, that's kind of funny. I maybe going to root against it just to keep that streak alive. I got the name Y360 because Yahoo used to have a social media platform named Y360. Okay, Steeler Y360 Nation. I mean, it fits the whole thing of Steeler year-round 360 Nation. That's kind of where I thought you were going with it, and I'm sure you were on Yahoo message boards back in the day, rolling that moniker. And I don't know whether we're dating ourselves here or not, and I'm a millennial, but I don't recall that social media platform. In terms of, we're just talking Yahoo message boards, or we're talking prior to Twitter, a Twitter-like Yahoo-fledged social media platform? Did they have the idea first and went nowhere with it? I mean, I don't know. I didn't dip into that. So maybe you were ahead of me there. I don't know our difference of ages, but that makes sense as your moniker there. We're going to round things out here unless I get more in the chat, and I'll still keep an eye here as we round out the program. Thanks to those of you who did chat, who were part of this Steelers live chat. I'd like to see more as we, the more of you there, because there are, again, more watching than are chatting. The more of you that chat, the more of you that actually engage, and I said maybe I'll do that thing with the debating a fan. Maybe I'll do that. But the more of you that actually engage will be the more you'll convince me to do more of these Steelers live chats. So we're kind of playing, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. If you like these and we're doing well at these and you have more chatters out there, then I'll do more of these. Maybe I'll even try to do more than once a week, or maybe I'll scrap my show and just do live. We'll see. It depends on what's going on here. Right now, not yet going to do that, but we'll see how things move. But at least probably one Steelers live chat, at least during the regular season, because I think we'll do even better there. Yahoo social media, it went defunct. I'm Generation X. Okay, so you are older in Yahoo social media. That's interesting. I might do a little Google search to research on that after I get off air here because, I was never a part of that clearly, but AOL, I guess, was my first jump into AOL Instant Messenger, AIM, my first jump into the social world, or at least of this type of situation after, AOL Instant Messenger. Before Twitter and before social media real boom, but I guess Yahoo social media didn't go anywhere, now defunct. Interesting. So I learned something that had nothing to do with football here during this. I don't mind that. Learn something new every day. At least you should. But it's going to be about how often we do these, how much you're engaging there. Again, more people are watching than engaging. I can get those views without doing the Steelers live chats. So make it worth my while by doing these Steelers live chats. And we're new. It's going to be the first year of covering the team for this site. Site just started the end of last season with all the drama. So I get it, but we got to have more activity in the chat to do these more often than at least what I'm pulling. But at minimum, I'll give you a Steelers live chat once a week during the season because I'm amazing. I'm amazed and I'm expecting that it's going to be, with the views so far, but it's going to even be more as we go into the season. Mike, do you expect the most improvement offense or defense? That's an interesting question, and I'll answer that as we round things out here. Again, I think the Steelers are going to win the division, so I'll give you that pick. What do I expect? Most improved offense or defense? Well, again, I'm going to go defense, and here's why. I don't think it's actually fair to say the offense needs to improve. I mean, yes, they're going to be different. They need to be better because you're not going to have Antonio Brown, the best receiver in football. You won't be as explosive as you were with him, or at least the option to be so. And I get it. They had slow starts the last several years, even with Bell there, in terms of what they did offensively. They had some games where they didn't really perform, and they had some games where Ben mistakes or other mistakes, Connor fumbles, cost them those games, despite moving the chains. Those games the offense lost for you. I get that. However, the offense is gonna score points. The offense has tons of talent around Ben still, tons of receivers. I think James Washington will step up and be the number 2. I think he'll get chances to be the number 2 first and get looks for being the number 2 first. I think it will be James Washington with Juju. I think Juju will deal with the double coverage, but James will help him. And James Washington will be the number 2. I think Connor will have another Pro Bowl style year, at least 1,000 yards on the ground, if he can stay healthy, which is a big deal. But I like Benny Snell to help him out there, maybe 400 yards, 500 yards from Benny Snell as well. I think Zach Gentry will have a nice season. Certainly not going to replace Jesse James, but at least a nice season. And Ben will spread it around more and be more efficient, maybe less yards, but less interceptions too. So that offense, I think, is going to score points and be okay. I don't think the offense will be the problem at all, and it wasn't the last few years. The defense has been the problem. The defense held the team back in addition to the drama, and the defense has to be better. But I think Steven Nelson being added will help them flip the field. He'll get his hands on the ball and cause some interceptions. That's big. That's why they brought him in as a free agent acquisition. I think Justin Lane will actually have a solid year and do the same for the team in terms of flipping the field and getting it done for the secondary. I don't know about Joe Hayden hanging on, even though he keeps saying he's gasped and appalled by his Madden ranking and needs more love. That's more of his for career. He'll give you a game or two, maybe. I could see that, but I don't think much from him. But I do think Justin Lane and Steven Nelson will flip the field enough for you and give you some turnovers. That will help things. And mainly, which is why the defense will be the most improved, and the defense will really help this team and be major improved from last year and the year before, is Devin Bush. Devin Bush, trading up to get Devin Bush. Top 10 pick. The Steelers' history very rarely does that. They hadn't traded up for a defensive player since Polamalu and Santonio Holmes overall. That's a Super Bowl MVP in Santonio Holmes and a future Hall of Famer in Troy Polamalu. So right there, that makes sense that's going to have tons of hype, but I think he'll live up to it. I think he'll be that Ryan Shazier replacement and then some, have that Ray Lewis effect on this team. As the inside backer to kind of captain and quarterback the defense, I think that will be a major hole that will be fixed that wasn't there the last year and a half without Shazier, that you could even see in that playoff game against the Jags, that you could see all of last season. They were trying to put Scotch tape on, throw everybody in. No. You got to have one guy. You got to have one Pro Bowler to really be a championship team in that position. And I think Devin Bush will be the defensive rookie of the year and get it done there to really bolster things defensively. So the defense will be the most improved, mainly because of Bush, but also the secondary moves I think will be a big deal. And they need more pass rush. I'm questioning that. I don't think that will really happen. But I think Devin Bush will be a big change and a big improvement, and that will really, really help things. If Mark Barron plays better than Bostic, that'll be an improvement. Yeah, that absolutely will be. And I tweeted at Mark Barron, actually. He's helping to make Pittsburgh love the number 26 again. So he's hoping to make the number 26 great again, at least in the minds of Pittsburghers in terms of their popularity. That's nice. I'm kind of going to root for him just for the number that he has, just for how funny that'll be. But that'll be an improvement for sure. So that'll definitely be an improvement there, and I do think the defense will be better, and the defense being better will make the team better, and the offense will be fine. National media is going to ask, oh, my God, what can they do without Antonio Brown? Sky's falling without AB. No, I think they'll be fine. They won't be as explosive, but I don't think the offense is going to miss him as much as others are saying. He'll have a great year with the Raiders, I'm sure, and get his numbers. That team won't win. The Steelers will be a better team. And I still think the Steelers actually are the favorites going in, despite not being a playoff team last year, and will win the division over the Ravens and Browns, who will fight it off for another wildcard berth that I think will happen in the division, if not 2 wildcard opportunities. It'll be a close race. 3 teams will have 8+ wins. I think the Steelers win the division with 10 or 11 at the most. I think it'll be that highly contested. Losing some swing games, losing some rival games, divisional games, it'll happen. But I think the Steelers will have the best overall team unit that actually might be better or at least perform better with more focus. And that business-like attitude that I mentioned in a past show will help them win the division, get back to the playoffs. And I don't know from there. I know one of these chatters here, Alvin loves to say Super Bowl championship. I don't see that, but who knows once you get into the playoffs. But I think this will be a playoff team again. I don't think they're going to miss 2 years in a row. A lot of those games last year that they lost, they shouldn't have lost, even with all the drama going on. You lose AB, but I think they're going to be just fine on offense. It'll be a different team. Rely more on overall play from the overall players and more than just a few guys to bail them out. But I do think with less drama, they'll be more focused. It's a business-like attitude, and they're going to be improved on different facets of the game that they need to be improved upon in order to win. So I'm going to round things out here. I'm going to close the chapter here on another one of these Steelers live chats. Mike, do you expect the kicking game to improve? You guys are always doing it to me as I want to get done with this. And it's really, really hot in this studio because I got to turn off the AC to do this so I don't have that picked up in the background sound-wise. We are up above Market Square here in downtown Pittsburgh. That is what I say to open most shows, and that is evident today with the humidity coming up here without AC, getting all the way to the 19th floor, which is where we're rocking out in one of these buildings, which I won't tell you. I do think the kicking game is going to improve. Whether it's Boswell or somebody else and he's going to be in a competition in camp, I think they're going to really, really lean in the direction of wanting to give him the job again or at least start the year with the job, but he won't be as bad as last year. He lost you a few games by himself last year. It was insane. I kept asking him press conference to press conference, week after week, what's the hook on Boswell? What's the confidence level in Boswell? And Tomlin kept giving him more rope and didn't want to pull the trigger on getting rid of Boswell and taking the job away because of the money and because of the recent success. I understand that. But it did hurt them and probably should have done it earlier if they wanted to be a playoff team because he cost them some games. They had a young kid there help him at the end. He kicked okay, but he's totally gone now. They'll bring in some guys, and it'll be a competition in training camp. If he's not getting it done there, maybe he won't start. But I think Boswell's going to get the nod. He'll get the chance to start first. I think he'll kick better than last year, and it'll be okay at least. Even if he's not the most efficient kicker in NFL history like he was a few years ago, it'll be better than last year. But the killer bees are gone regardless, as Bell and Brown are gone. I'm rooting for Boswell to bounce back. Sucks he had a bad year. Well, it sucked for him. Yeah, you kind of honestly do have to root for the guy. He's a good guy. He's a nice guy. And he's one of those guys that took ownership. He sucked. I mean, he didn't try to lie to you or sugarcoat it. He said, I'm not playing well. I'm sucking. Everyone knew it, but at least he would say that. And then, he got some death threats and people just went ridiculous and crazy. So I am rooting for him to kind of shove a middle finger in the air at a lot of those ridiculous fans who were threatening him because he was missing a kick. He cost them some games last year, but I think he'll be better. I think he will bounce back. There's going to be pressure on him, though, which he's not performed well under pressure. That could be an issue. But I'm rooting for him, honestly. I mean, we try not to root in media, but it's hard not to root for that kind of guy who's that honest, who's that upfront, And I think this team is more likable overall without Bell and AB. And not that I have a problem with Bell. I understood the contract issue, and AB prior to just being crazy, even though he blocked me on Twitter, I don't have a problem with the guy. But it was fun, entertaining in a way to cover those two, and helped me engagement and views-wise a little. But I'm also going to love a year to kind of really focus on covering football when we're at these games. That'll be nice. And this team is more likable overall for the fan, I could say. I mean, it's a younger team. It's a hungrier team. It's a motivated team. They got a business-like attitude, as I mentioned. And I think it's a team that really, really is more popular and going to be more fun to root for than the last 2 years with, as a veteran in this market, I like to say, the Toxic Twins. So that's going to do it here for this edition of the Steelers Live Chat, this edition of Mic Drop here on Pittsburgh Sports Live. Want to make sure you hit up Pittsburgh Sports Now, Pittsburgh Soccer Now, Pittsburgh Hockey Now, all through the channel. But, of course, SteelersNow.com, going to have all of my shows up there. Also, PGHSportsLive.com, where these shows and really everything on the channel lives in all eternity for our little website plug there. Going to try to move the Pittsburgh Sports Live Facebook as well, so find Pittsburgh Sports Live on Facebook, as well as on Twitter, at PGH Sports Live on Twitter. You can find me, of course, at Mike Asti 11 on Twitter, and Steelers Now, SteelersNow.com, at PGH Steelers Now on Twitter, at PGH Sports Live on Twitter, and at PGH Steelers Now on Twitter. So find those two. And the weather, again, is not making you feel that way, but training camp is right here. Kind of let this simmer. Maybe I'll touch on it next week. Try to do a live, but with training camp, I'm going to try to be there and do a lot of videos throughout the weekend and then next week. And Al and I are going to be tag teaming, and it's going to be a lot. We're going to throw up there, especially with those players just getting, someone wearing a Stone Cold belt and flipping the bird, or somebody getting off a helicopter, or somebody throwing up in the Batmobile. I'm going to expect something from Juju. That got to be fun. We're going to have all that for you. So get ready for that. That'll kind of be the shift for training camp, at least early on that first day, for me at least. But I will say that you guys can kind of think and ponder this one over, that not only do you think this team will be more likable, which I think they definitely will be more likable throughout next year, but kind of what else do you want from the site in terms of what else do you want from Steelers Now? We've got a credential. We're going to be doing a lot. We're going to have more content for you, of course, game day especially, or even from the channel. So PGHSportsLive.com for the site, SteelersNow.com. Hit that up. At PGH Sports Live on Twitter, at PGH Steelers Now on Twitter. Make sure you click subscribe. Make sure you click subscribe while you're here. Makes it easier for us to get the content to you. Help to keep the lights on here at the studio or wherever we may be, game, arena, stadium, whatever. Great show. Thanks again there, James. Appreciate it. Good discussion. Keep it coming. More of these Steelers Live chats again as we keep it moving. And it doesn't feel like football season, but it is on the horizon. So get ready. Get excited and get ready for some football regardless of what Mother Nature's showing you. And I'm going to try to tell myself off here. But we'll be back. More of this to come, so stick with us.